And welcome to the June 5th, 2026 Fintech Book Club discussion. Today with my co-hosts Effie, Jim, and I will be discussing The Agentic Bank by Driss Temsamani. It's still early here, I guess, in the East Coast US, so that's my excuse. Um, so we are going to be reading uh, discussing this book this morning. And please submit your comments and questions via LinkedIn. We don't have chat capabilities, so we'll see them here and put them up, uh, so that we can answer them during the discussion. So, and feel free to ask questions, whether or not you've read the book. That doesn't matter. That no qualifications for joining the discussion. And as they tell you in school, there's no dumb questions, only ones you didn't ask. So, let's get started. Why does this book matter? And what's our overall take on this? And let's start with you, Jim.
Oh, gosh. You know, as we were talking right before we went live, I'm really glad we chose this book. Because as I read it, I kept thinking, this book is going to be really unsettling for a lot of people, certainly a lot of bankers that I know, because the vision that Driss is kind of presenting here doesn't kind of line up with how a lot of banks see themselves. I really think that, I could almost hear the echo in the back of my mind saying, oh, that may work at Citi, but not at our bank. And that's one of the main reasons why I think this book matters so much, because it really challenges conventional ways of thinking at a pretty pivotal time in the evolution of this tech. It was funny, as I was reading it, I had this flashback to the first reactions I had to Brett King's book, Augmented, back in 2016, 10 years ago. Can you believe that? Because Brett had painted at that time this like big picture of what was coming, a world that was going to be reshaped by AI. But where Brett kind of started the thought process a decade ago, Driss is like handing us a blueprint, because he doesn't just talk about the shift from augmentation to agency. He really lays out what that transformation needs to look like and what's going to be required. I think this book is pretty consequential, and he doesn't stay abstract either. I mean, he spends a whole chapter exploring use cases like treasury management, AML, just to demonstrate the kinds of problems that agentic AI is really uniquely suited to solve. One of the things that I also want to add, because I found his writing style to be so accessible. Some books read so difficult, but this one, I mean, there are even times when he's a little poetic, which I kind of loved. I mean, he described data as a living asset, right? It's like, wow, the metaphor was really beautiful because, of course, in an agentic system, data has to stop being something that's just stored and reviewed before your quarterly board meeting. I just really found this book so important because it forces us to ask really big questions. What's going to happen when employees have to shift from the work that they do every day to actually supervising intelligent systems that do the work instead? What's going to happen when your customers interact with agents to research a mortgage or an auto loan and your loan officer is sitting there by their phone waiting for somebody to call? Those are uncomfortable questions because they challenge business as usual. And I think that's what the value of this book is, because it forces the question. It makes us ask, where are we today? And what is our first step we can take towards a different future? I mean, I really think this is one of the most important books we've read.
Yes, yes. And I'd like to add to what you said, Jim. Driss is not a consultant. He's not a futurist. And as you said, reading this book, anybody in any part of a financial services organization, no matter which department they are, they can understand his
Yeah.
his stories, his narratives, his practical examples, his line of thought. It is really powerful. Clearly, he has the authority, being at Citibank for 30 years, being at the level now to be advising central banks and so on, to really, uh, you know, be in a position to write this. But as you said, he goes from shaping a narrative, and as he mentions at some point, I really love that there's nothing more powerful than narrative, because obviously our mindset, the mind share, has to be gained first after the implementation. And he doesn't shy from pointing out like things like, the KPIs that you're using are no good anymore, and we'll have the opportunity to talk about that um, more specifically. He clearly makes the point that others make, that we're not talking about a simple transformation, like mobile and so on. um, it's really a deep system and systemic redesign, and he makes that point clearly. You walk away from this book, and there's actionable ideas that we'll talk about. One of the lines that I underlined and made a poster on Twitter is his line about the unit of work not being a task anymore,
Mm.
but a decision. And we'll talk about that. Over to you, Stessa, to share your perspective.
Well, I obviously agree with both of you, and I think this is um, it reads easily, and so it would be easy to dismiss it, and it seems deceptively simple yet extremely complex, even for the most technologically savvy, well-funded financial institutions. And I think that is the thing that he's trying to get at here. It's not a question of whether you're a community bank, a credit union, or a large retail bank, global, regional, asset size, whatever. It's not AI versus humans, or human in the loop versus no human in the loop. Um, it's the actual essence and infrastructure and nature of work of banking. Um, he goes over and over again around reactive versus proactive,
Mhm.
the processes versus the decision making,
Mm.
and that by looking at infrastructure, which nobody has wanted to really look at. Any bank has been avoiding this from the emergence of mobile banking.
Mhm.
Um, if you don't look at it from this perspective, you will introduce all the AI risks that everyone is talking about. Um, I think the other thing that, in going to humans, is the preservation of human authority
Mhm.
rather than autonomous decision making really struck me, because not only is this there's a lot of hype around humans or AI, but people are afraid about the future of their jobs, the future of work. And many consultants and many people will talk about, the nature of your job is going to change, but they don't really talk about how and don't show it, right? And when he talks about collaboration, he's talking not only, amongst humans, but agent and human collaboration, but not competition. And I think these are really, really important. Um, so I think those are my thoughts. In addition to what you guys said,
The,
Effie.
another thought came to mind. This book is really focused on internal transformation. And it's not only for banks, it can be any financial services. In some ways, it could be for any business, because especially the treasury management examples, apply to any CFO and treasury team and so on. I don't know if it was intentional, but that is, a cross industry
Oh
thing,
yeah.
right? And again, he's more focused on the internal transformation and I guess the business model transformation rather than the consumer facing aspect. It's less the focus of
Right.
this
Right.
is not a criticism, but just to make clear that it is more focused on that part, on how the business internally could and should transform.
Well, and if there's only maybe one criticism that I would have is that organizationally, the organization must change how it's structured, how it's motivated and rewarded. Um, so it's not an IT thing only. And I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for bankers and
Yeah.
banks because I've been, and probably all of you have been saying for at least a decade, you have to address organizational issues. You just can't slap lipstick on a pig. I mean, who hasn't used that phrase? So to your point about talking, it's not customer facing, I think is maybe intentional. And if not, it's a brilliant choice because you just can't throw out some agents and say, we did it. There's less friction at the customer facing end because we have all these agents.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting because part of me is thinking, people in the audience, people that are watching this video may be thinking, what did he do? Did he pay you guys to say all these good things about this book? But the question is, or the answer is no, he didn't. But honestly, this was kind of surprising to me because when we started out, when we agreed to do this book for this quarter, it was like I had kind of low expectations. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, this is the kind of thing that can help people really reframe their own thinking moving forward.
Yeah. And I think we're reflective of reality because I too was like, oh, the Agentic Bank. Oh, that sounds like pro agent technology. And I had a little maybe like you, uh-huh. But then it's about technology, but not about technology. It's like how the business is going to run and how your model of operations. And that's why treasury management is so
powerful,
interesting and important as an example, because here's an operation. It's huge, it's complicated, and he breaks it down.
Yep.
I don't understand all about treasury management. He's obviously an expert, and I think that expertise lends a credibility to his argument because he really breaks it down. And if he didn't, more than half of this book would be out the window. But you need that specific concrete stuff. But so I came at it also with okay, show me. We hear so much about agentic banking. Everybody's publishing white papers, books, etc. But this kind of turned me over to oh, he's talking about changing the essence of banking, not the technology so much as we have to move from manual processes, not just digitize a bunch of liquidity, and we need to bring more governance, risk management, transparency to the fore. It needs to be included in the infrastructure.
I think that it's a brilliant book. As you said, Jim, we sound like we're the publishers or the marketers of this book. But if you start reading this book and say, I am going to read this book and make a collection of actionable insights or ideas or actions, there are many and very concrete, not vague, very concrete, actionable things to do within whatever organization or department rather you are. You can really start. He has actions around data, right? To me, he made it very clear. I'm not an IT person. I've never worked in a data labeling or that part of the department, but I understood through this what it practically means when we talk about contextual data that agents need. We all know that by now, but through his examples, he makes clear what the problem is, the shortcoming of data lakes or other structures, and so on. I hugely appreciate um, how he convinces us that you have to take an important use case and go deep, really, there. And um, this thing with the KPIs, I don't know if I'm a broken record. It has really stuck with me. How he explains that the KPIs, even that are used today to see how an agentic redesign in a certain area, let's say compliance, is good or not, they're all wrong, mostly wrong. And he explains that. For example, he had some numbers, and I'm looking at some notes, um, so I don't misquote him if I have it in my notes about an AI agent that is 30% utilized. So it's a low utilization rate based on conventional KPIs. You would think that this is not good. You wouldn't rank highly, but you need to understand why they're underutilized, because they are there for the more difficult decisions. So he explains all this, and as I said again, in a very practical way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the critical things, actionable ideas, is looking at agents very specifically, not only for roles, but what purposes they serve in in the agent layer, and how do they collaborate with, how do you strategize for how you're going to use it now, but also you have to think about how it scales to other business processes. You don't have to think maybe through the whole thing, but you have to think through the connective tissue that is currently siloed. There's no connective tissue between these different lines of businesses, these different processes, and that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. But the way he breaks it down in this book, showing here's the role of the first set of agents, and this is what they do, and this is how they expand, you go, okay, it's actually doable, I think. And that's really the and I think that leads to one of the main action items I think people that read this have to take away, and it's a hard one. Don't look for one agent or a set of agent solutions to solve all your problems.
Mm, mm.
I mean,
Great point.
and this kind of goes to the announcement, of, Anthropic, and I guess it's Fiserv. I mean, what agents, where's the infrastructure around it? Have they dealt that? So I think bankers, business, IT have to have new questions for evaluating solutions. And yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say what you said a few minutes ago. Also, I want to circle back on, because you had mentioned a little bit earlier the example that he gives relative to treasury management, which I think was so practical and kind of points to the kind of use cases that begin to illustrate what he's really trying to communicate. Because, I mean, treasury management, in my mind, was kind of this perfect intersection of where an agentic system is really good at a series of things: continuous monitoring, data-intensive decision-making, forecasting, rules-based execution, all of those things that agentic systems are designed for. I mean, it perfectly lines up with a treasury management program. But at the same time, he's saying this all has to be orchestrated, right? And that's the big mind shift that has to occur here. It's like, yeah, treasury is a great example of bankers acting as orchestrators rather than processors. So we've got to apply that same thought process across the entire organization.
Right. And that orchestration piece is hard.
Yes.
Right, because that's collaboration at a level that banks have resisted. It's hard. It's collaboration at the people level. It's collaboration with people you haven't collaborated before, like government and risk management and the development of these agents and these processes and these rules, right? And everybody will say, well, I don't want to do that because my job, right? And I think that's a challenge. But I think that collaboration is the key around being able to stay in business. And I think Dharmesh, I'm sorry, posted a question.
Does
Does just
yeah.
think agentic AI is an existential crisis for banks that don't adopt it? And I think that our discussion leads directly to that. I don't know if it's existential or not, but I think it's about the future of banking. That can you process and make decisions at the speed of the business?
Right.
From my reading, there's nothing, there's no explicit statement by the author, saying, if banks don't do this or financial services, they will die. However, it is clear that the intelligence that he is describing through this systemic reorchestration and redesign is essential for any business to survive. And again, I think that this book can also be read by other non-financial businesses and get a lot from it because there's these he's really clear.
One of the real this question actually kind of pushes me right to one of the actionable ideas that I've found from this book that I think makes so much sense right now. And it's essentially, whether you're a bank, credit union, doesn't matter, build an honest AI maturity map. You have to look honestly where you're at, because I mean, Driss in the book, he describes this progression from manual to assisted to augmented to autonomous. That kind of direction, that pathway, I think if a lot of institutions took a really honest assessment of where they are right now, they would probably be sitting, much more on that. We're still doing so much manually. We're still doing things barely assisted, especially community-based institutions. They're probably earlier in the journey than they even assume because of legacy core systems, data silos, all those things that we talk about routinely. But I think it's a really strategic initiative for a lot of folks right now to pause long enough and do an honest assessment of their own kind of AI maturity.
To answer another question that Dharmesh is asking, whether the author differentiates what agents do, programmable money. Yes, towards the end of the book, he does talk about the convergence of programmable finance and agents. I wouldn't say that, he has a deep example like the Treasury agentic example that he describes with programmable money, but he clearly believes in that convergence. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, from go ahead, Cesar.
No, I think the connective tissue here is like business, finance, money movement is moving at a different speed now, and in order to keep up with that, to operate at that speed, you need a different infrastructure that's based on agents and data, the ability to consume data, analyze it, and provide decision-making tools to humans and other agents so that you can operate, in it. So it's not a, either or, but I think it's very complementary to programmable money. I think if a bank isn't looking at doing the rest of its business differently, I mean, it's going to be another silo. It's
Yep.
just got programmable money as the label. And I think this is what he's getting at. He's like, instead of chasing the technology, chase the change that you need to make instead. And that's it contrasts really well with the example that he gives in the book, because you're going, wow, I could make my treasury management organization look like that. Yeah, but you have to do all this hard work, I think up front. And I think it's easy to think in terms of big transformation. But again, he makes a point that I really like, of course, because,
Yeah.
but it starts small in an organization to shift your thinking and how the organization can move from process to and reactive to strategic and proactive, and humans focusing on decision making and the agents focusing on, collecting, analyzing, providing results and possibilities to humans or higher level agents, and sorting out the 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 high risks, the risks in a very not only timely but proactive manner before things happen, when the data is there to make the decisions. And I think that's also key. So you're not just digitizing or agentizing, treasury, which I think is something he talks about quite a bit, but you're doing something else. So
Right.
sorry.
Right.
Yeah. I would say, in my notes, if you want, of what should be the recommendation for Monday actionable,
Oh, our Monday morning mandate.
the
Woohoo.
Yeah.
morning mandate, except get the book and get each of your departments to read the chapter and convert it to actions, I would say. But I would say the following. One, choose one area that is important to your business. It doesn't have to be treasury that he put the spotlight on. It can be KYC, it can be compliance, and go deep there. What does that mean? There's two or three things that I would say from his suggestions. One, you need to look at your current data architecture, because these agents
Right.
you need to know whether your data is from a data lake, whether the schema, and again, I'm not that technical, but I did understand that there's this difference where you absorb the data and you classify it at the point of input, or you do it later, and there's different advantages. But here you have to make sure that it is categorized so the agent can understand the context. So that is one thing that really needs to happen. And then the second thing that he insists, and I said it earlier before, is the KPIs that you're going to use in the next 3 months to evaluate these agentic processes need to be new. He's provocative. He says, throw away the old KPIs, the SLAs, the failure rates, and so on, because they're not good. And he proposes new ones. He says time to outcome, proactive issue prevention, human to agent collaboration scores. Those are new KPIs. And then the last one that I hadn't thought is he talks about designing a new agent review committee, which is alongside the risk and the ethics, and asks questions like which agents are safe to scale, where have override frequencies increased and why, are agent decisions aligning with institutional values and legal expectations, and when should an agent be posed, retrained, or retired. These are things that they don't exist in institutions, and they
Right.
have to start existing and become standard, I guess. And I pause there to have you guys add to these Monday morning, if you want, actions that you suggest.
Well, let me jump in so that way Stessa can kind of wrap us up. But I want to point out, see, this book is not very thick.
Yes.
It's an easy book to get through. It is going to really shift some thinking, or hopefully. And Driss ends the book with a really powerful question. He says, "Who among us will have the courage to lead?" So, it's not the courage to buy technology. It's not the courage to launch a pilot. It's the courage to meet this new age of agentic AI with genuine intent. So I would say the Monday morning mandate has to be intensely personal. I would suggest Monday morning, take 30 minutes, get quiet, just ask yourself honestly, do you have the intent and the capability to lead through what's coming? Not to manage it, not to delegate it, but to actually lead in it, because that kind of honest assessment is going to help identify the conversations your institution needs to have as you move forward. Because here's the truth, agentic AI doesn't make small banks obsolete, it makes complacent banks obsolete.
And I'll read one sentence to enhance what you're saying. He says, the fully agentic bank will not feel like a bank that has added intelligence. It will feel like an intelligence that carries out the function of a bank.
Great point, Effie.
Yeah.
It's a nice.
Tessa?
Well, my Monday morning mandate is, I think all CXOs read the book. It has to start at the top, not a new statement, and it has to not trickle down. It has to flow down like an overflowing river and flood the organization, not just the IT group, not just even the business side, but everybody, because everybody's worried about their job inside your organization. And I think to follow up with what you said, Jim, is like, do I have the courage to lead differently?
Mm-hmm.
Different people, different agents and people. Do I have the courage to lead in a more collaborative way? And I don't mean sitting around the campfire holding hands, but to do that kind of collaboration that's required when you have this sophisticated orchestration layer. And I think the other thing that's going to go hand in hand with this is really looking at your organization's AI strategy and initiatives, and have the courage to say, you know what, we have way too many things and we need to focus, or not. Wherever your organization is, have the courage. Because I think one of the problems is, if all of this is in the IT organization, you need to get that out of there.
Yeah.
Whether you're the CTO or the CEO. One of my favorite sentences from this book is, technology doesn't dictate outcomes. People do, right? So if you want to have a better use of agentic banking, that's the thing.
Stessa, real quickly, to your point, do you have the link to that video? There it is.
Yes, I do. I
That's
was just
brilliant.
about to put that up. So
Good.
we posted a link to the video that just refers and created in the book that shows what collaboration of humans and agents actually can look like. Is that the only way? No, but I think what is important is like, oh, this is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
This is possible, and it's not humans or agents, and I think that's also important. And he's consistent with that as well.
Yeah.
So
Not
yeah.
forget that this book was published in 25, so it was written 23, 24, well before the agentic economy and agentic was a big thing like it is today, right? So
I think it holds up even better because
Yeah.
now the pressure is on, and I think we can all acknowledge the pressure is on everybody who's watching this, listening to it, turned it off already, doesn't want to read this book, to do AI, whatever that is in the bank, whether it's putting up a chat bot or eliminating jobs because Gen AI can do everything. This is a book that's essential to I think your well-being and understanding what's coming. It's starting to be here, and I think it's profound that he wrote this a couple years ago, and now it's even more applicable. You can see it even more readily. I think that makes it really worthwhile. So I too, even though I came with it going agentic banking, I'm really glad that we chose this book to read right now because it's something that everybody's talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I'm skimming through the pages and all my notes and everything, and I'm looking at this table that he shared around 4 types of deployment models or patterns of agents, and he talks about embedded agents, orchestrated agents, federated agents, shadow agents, and for each of them, not only he describes what they are, but gives examples of best fit use cases for each of them. So
Yeah,
again, he's very practical, very concrete. He makes it,
yeah,
it's again what you all said, it's easy to read. You don't feel intimidated
yeah,
reading this book, and you
yeah, yeah.
understand a lot, right?
And the CEO needs to know this as well as the CMO, and
Yeah.
also somebody on the IT team who may just be on an AI project for the first time. And you can see it would mean something. They would each read it differently. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, that a good value for a book that can be used that way in the business world makes it extremely valuable, I think.
That's a
Um,
great point.
it's we don't have to have a version that's dumbed down for the business, all right, from the IT side, or it's not technical enough. I mean, you want technical, in terms of agents and how they work. He has plenty in the implementation guide,
Yep.
around how they work, and I think it's valuable. I did think, is this 2 books? And I thought, no, it's not. It's 1 book
Mhm.
because one flows just the same way that he's talking about fewer boundaries around lines of business. The book flows that way as well.
Yeah.
So you can see his mind, he's already moved to that agentic banking way of thought. And it's admirable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
just one more time where we're inviting people in the industry to shift their mindset, and I hope it kind of inspires a lot of people to do things differently.
yeah, and I think it pairs well with our previous books around organizational change.
Yep.
By Lita, Theo's books on AI and ethics, Rick Cockelsberg's on ethos and mission, and also things around identity. So it's a good companion to all of these things, because the boundaries between AI ethics and agentic banking, not so much. Digital identity and agentic banking, not so much.
So what's our next book?
Here we go. Our next book is going to be The Intelligent Bank by Chris Skinner, and we'll be discussing it Friday, September 18th on LinkedIn. So we'll be putting up a link to register, and we hope to have you join us then. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So we will be at the summer beach with this book. If you see
That's right.
somebody reading on the beach, it will be us.
That's right. That's the kind of fintech nerds we are.
And don't forget to check out our fintech book library that has any book that's been published. Of course, we can't read all the books, but they're there, and you can look. There's new titles around tokenization. There's others around consumer banking. There's all sorts of books.
All at fintechbook.club.com, and there's also a link to the YouTube channel if you will probably want to rewatch this over and over and over again, and share with your friends and colleagues.
There you go.
Great. Thanks a lot, and see you in September.
Thank you.